Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Acolyte Podcast. This evening we will be reading Chapter 4 of the Inferno, which gives us the first circle, which is Limbo. Be sure to stick around for the end of the reading for a little bit of discussion about this chapter. With that said, let's begin. Broke the deep lethargy within my head, a heavy thunder, so that I upstarted, like to a person who by force is wakened. And round about I moved my rested eyes. Uprisen erect and steadfastly I gazed, to recognize the place wherein I was. This is it, that upon the verge I found me, of the abysmal valley dolorous, that gathers thunder of infinite ulations. Obscure, profound it was, and nebulous, so that by fixing on its depths my sight, nothing whatever I discerned within. Let us descend now into the blind world, began the poet, pallid utterly. I will be first, and thou shalt be second. And I, who of his color was aware, said, Who shall I come, if thou art afraid? Who't won't be a comfort to my fears? And he said to me, The anguish of the people who are below here in my face depicts that pity which for terror thou hast taken. Let us go on, for the long way impels us. Thus he went in, and thus he made me enter the foremost circle that surrounds the abyss. There, as it seemed to me from listening, were lamentations none, but only sighs, that tremble made the everlasting air. And this arose from sorrow without torment, which the crowds had, that many were and great, of infants and of women and of men. To me the Master good, Thou dost not ask what spirits these, which thou beholdest are. Now will I have thee know, here thou go further, that they sinned not, and if they merit had, 'tis not enough because they had not been baptized, which is the portal of the faith thou holdest. And if they were before Christianity, in the right manner they adorned not God, and among such as these am I myself. For such defects, and not for other guilt, lost are we, and are only so far punished, that without hope we live on in desire. Great grief seized my heart when I heard this, because some people of much worthiness I knew, who in limbo were suspended. Tell me, my master, tell me, thou my lord, began I, with desire of being certain of that faith which overcometh every error. Come anyone by his own merit hence, or by another's, who was blessed thereafter? And he, who understood my covert speech, replied, I was a novice in this state, when I saw hither come a mighty one, with sign of victory and cornet. Hence he drew forth the shade of the first parent, and that of his son Abel, and of Noah, of Moses the lawgiver, and of the obedient Abraham, patriarch, and David, king, Israel with his father and his children, and Rachel, for whose sake he did so much, and others many, and he made them blessed. And thou must know that earlier than these never were any human spirits saved. We ceased not to advance because he spake, but still were passing onward through the forest. The forest, say I, of thick, crowded ghosts. Not very far as yet our way had gone. This side of the summit, when I saw a fire, we were a little distance from it still, that overcame a hemisphere of darkness, but not so far that I in part discerned, not that honorable people held that place. O thou who honorest every art and science? Who may these be, which such great honor have, that from the fashion of the rest it parts them? And he to me, the honorable name, and that sounds of them above there in thy life, wins grace in heaven that so advances them. In the meantime a voice was heard by me. All honor be to the preeminent poet. His shade returns again that was departed. After the voice had ceased and quieted was, 4 mighty shades I saw approaching us. Semblance had they, nor sorrowful nor glad. To say to me began my gracious master, him with the falcon in his hand behold, who comes before the 3, even as their lord. That one is Homer, poet sovereign. He who comes next is Horace, the satirist, and the 3rd is Ovid, and the last is Lucan. Because to each of these with me applies the name that solitary voice proclaimed, they do me honor, and in that do well. Thus I beheld assembled the fair school of that lord of the song preeminent, who o'er the others like an eagle soars. When they together had discoursed somewhat, they turned to me with the signs of salutation, and on beholding this, my master smiled. And more of honor still, much more they did me, in that they made me one of their own band, so that the 6th was I, mid so much wit. Thus we went on as far as to the light, things saying it's becoming to keep silent, as was the saying of them where I was. We came unto a noble castle's foot, 7 times encompassed with lofty walls, defended round by a fair rivulet. This we passed over even as firm ground. Through portals 7 I entered with these sages. We came into a meadow of fresh verdure. People were there with solemn eyes and slow, of great authority in their countenance. They spake but seldom, and with gentle voices. Thus we withdrew ourselves upon one side into an opening, luminous and lofty, so that they all of them were visible. There opposite, upon the green enamel, were pointed out to me the mighty spirits, whom to have seen I feel myself exalted. I saw Electra, with companions many, mongst whom I knew both Hector and Aeneas, Caesar in armor with gerfalcon eyes, and I saw Camilla and Pisilia on the other side, and saw the king Latinus, who with Lavinia his daughter sat. I saw that Brutus, who drove Tarquin forth, Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia, and I saw alone, apart, the Saladin, who I had lifted up my brows a little. The master I beheld of those who now sit with his philosophic family. All gaze upon him, and all do him honor. There I beheld both Socrates and Plato, who nearer him before the others stand. Democritus, who puts the world on chance, Diogenes, Anaxagoras, and Thales, Zeno, Empedocles, and Heraclitus. Of qualities I saw the good collector, high Diocrates, and Orpheus I saw, Tully and Livy, and moral Seneca, Euclid, Geometrician, and Ptolemy, Galen, Hippocrates, and Avicenna, Averroes, who the great comment made. I cannot all of them portray in full, because so drives me onward the long theme, that many times the word comes short of fact. The 6-fold company in 2 divides. Another way my sapient guide conducts me forth, from the quiet to the air that trembles, into a place I come where nothing shines. that brings us to the end of the first circle, which is limbo. The home of the virtuous pagans and the unbaptized. Here we have Virgil introducing Dante to your great Greek minds. Homer, Horace, Socrates, all of them are located within limbo. And I think this is probably the most understated fact of this story is the balls Dante has. Like, you see it in most modern writing. Authors will place himself within their story, and like George R. R. Martin did it, obviously, with Sam in Game of Thrones, and you have the mirroring of Tolkien's love with Aragon and Arwen and Beren and Luthien. But nobody really has since had the balls to just make themselves the main character. Dante is just like, I am going to journey through hell. I am going to be the main character of this travel. I am going to introduce myself to all of the great philosophers throughout history, and I'm going to sit and have them tell me how kind of wonderful I am. And that just, I mean, the balls. But moving aside from that little tidbit, this is pretty much the last sunshine and rainbows chapter, even though there's no sunshine and rainbows in this. We're about to get into the nitty-gritty. We're about to see the moral of this story, which is stated in the beginning of the third chapter. Abandon all hope. That is the point of a commedia. You know, a comedy in its traditional sense is not funny. It was supposed to be entertaining, but there is a lesson to be learned. And the lesson Dante has to learn in the Inferno is that all of the souls he sees, he interacts with, they earned this fate. There's nothing that you can do for them. And I think that speaks to the idea that we have to be responsible for our own actions. I don't necessarily believe in a Dante-like Inferno existing in the same sense that it is extremely viscerally depicted within this novel, but there is a very valid lesson to take from it, which is all of these different things, some of them could be seen as innocent, they are still going to set up repercussions within your life that you will have to deal with, be it now or be it after death, whether it be you that's dealing with it or your family that's dealing with it. And the moral of the Inferno is there is no hope left for those souls, and you're supposed to sympathize for them at the beginning, but you'll notice through the story, the more interactions Dante has with each soul in the Inferno, the more he starts to become desensitized to their suffering. He will listen to their story. In the beginning, it seems like almost in sympathy. He wants to know because he feels sorry. He feels pity for the souls. And as you go through the Inferno, he loses that pity and it becomes more of a journalistic reporting style kind of listening. He does not, that sympathy goes out the window, and his only interest is in what and why, and not how the effect is. He becomes less interested in passing along word to those above, you'll notice. And there's something else he does through this that we will notice as well, which is ask everyone about what's going on in Venice. at the time. Because apparently all the souls in hell know what's going on earth. Just like all souls in heaven would know what was going on earth. So, they are tormented not only by the pain and suffering they're going through, but by the knowledge that of what happened to their loved ones after they passed, or, you know. But that brings us to the end of today's discussion. Thank you so very much for tuning into the Acolyte Podcast. Be sure to leave a like, a subscribe, hit that notification bell so that way you are informed whenever we release our next video. Thank you so much for everyone who's been avidly viewing. It means the world to me, it really does. If you have any input, any thoughts, any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments and I will broach them at the next video concerning those, you know, if it's an Iliad comment, I'll reply to it on the Iliad videos. If it's a Dante question, I'll respond in the next Dante video. Alright everyone, bye.